You know, the Phillies are on pace to win 95 games, Peter.
Unbelievable.
We'll talk more about them right now with 97.3 ESPN.com Phillies writer Frank Klose. He joins us for the mailbag right here on the Sports Bash as the Phils get ready to take on the Baltimore Orioles. Last time they were in Baltimore, things did not go so well there, Frank.
Yeah, I was at that game. I think we did see a Jim Thome home run. I think that was the highlight. If you remember his little comeback with the Phillies, what was it, 5 years ago, 6 years ago now? It's hard to believe it was that long ago, but I was there for it, and we got a Thome home run, and that was the one fun thing out of that trip.
We are at the quarter pole right around there, 95 win pace right now. Are you, Frank, buying or selling this team? You're around them more than most of us.
Well, let's see. I don't think they're going to win 95, and there's still a lot of baseball left. The Phillies need to play some of these other teams that they haven't seen yet. They need to play the Braves and beat the Braves. And they have to beat the Nationals some. I think right now a lot of people still pick the Washington Nationals to win the NL East. But there's a lot of baseball to go, so it's really hard to put a number right now.
All right, Frank, some questions, a lot of questions. You could tell that the Phillies are on the tip of people's tongues right now. They're on top of mind as a lot of questions coming in for the mailbag. Ed wants to know, who do you keep when Mark Leiter Jr. comes off the DL? He pitched pretty well in spring training, had a lot of strikeouts. He's kind of a strikeout guy. So what is their plan for Leiter Jr. when he returns?
We're actually kind of waiting to see. The Phillies option Jake Thompson to AAA,
No
and
relation.
they're going to add another pitcher. Yes, no relation, as you remind us regularly. But the Phillies are set to add somebody today. It could even be Mark Leiter Jr. The Phillies, I don't believe they've made an announcement as of yet. I haven't checked in like an hour or so. But the Phillies are going to find themselves kind of with a surplus of pitchers. And, Mark Leiter Jr., so far he's made 3 rehab appearances at Class A Clearwater, striking everybody out just like he did in Clearwater in spring training. So he's going to be coming back soon. And this might not be an issue of Hutchison or Leiter at this point. Jared Eichhoff, he made a rehab start today at Reading. It was like a 10:30 game. It's part of a doubleheader. So, but Eichhoff, he pitched 53 pitches. He went 3 1/3, I believe, allowing 2 earned runs, 3 runs total. So he's going to be coming back soon, and Victor Arano could be the arm that's activated today. He was rehabbing at AA Reading, so they're going to find themselves with a surplus of riches really, really, really soon. Now, if you're asking about Hutchison, I think Hutchison could kind of be the odd man out, and even though he's pitched very, very well, I think when you look at all the talent that's come up for the Phillies recently, Yaxel Rios, it's really hard to argue with the job he's done for the Phillies. He wasn't part of the opening day roster, and he might get a chance to stick around. Sir Anthony Dominguez, right? We spoke last week about how impressive he has looked, and it's going to be kind of hard to get rid of him. And because of Hutchison being the age he is, he might be the guy that gets squeezed, and it's just not because he's not playing well. It could just be because they have too many options. And I think, if the Phillies put Hutchison on waivers, I think somebody claims him and he plays for somebody else. But we're going to, as we said a week ago, we got to wait and see because you never know who's going to get injured next, right? In fact, that last injury from lefty Adam Morgan, he was just stretching before the game and he aggravated something. So you never really know until the day of, and maybe that's why they have not announced this extra roster spot yet today. But either Arano or Leiter is probably joining the Phillies today. And, when it comes time to it, Hutchison, he might end up departing the organization, but not because he didn't pitch well.
Frank Klose with us. Mailbags open. Frank in Washington. Hector Neris blew a save, then 5 nights later blew another save and had a 9th-inning meltdown. So nobody likes to hear closer by committee, and will that work or will that not work? But Brian wants to know, who is the Phillies closer 30 days from now?
This is a really tough question to answer. I think that we're going to. My simple answer is nobody. I know we like to say closer by committee doesn't work, but I think Gabe Kapler showed the other day. He seemed to back Neris as the guy that's going to be the closer for this club. But yet, when the 9th inning came, he seemed poised to let Sir Anthony Dominguez pitched into a second inning into the ninth inning, and then when he ended up having to be pinch hit for, he went to Edubray Ramos. So it seems like Neris is not the closer. I think it's probably too soon to give up on Neris. I think when we were talking this off season, I frequently said I wouldn't mind seeing the Phillies pick up a closer. But if you notice, I wrote something yesterday on the website that really there weren't many options at all this past off season in terms of finding a closer. And with the Phillies not expecting to contend this year necessarily, there was really no need to go for broke for somebody like Wade Davis, who's kind of up there in years and commanded literally the biggest relief salary ever in the history of baseball. So the Phillies were kind of smart to stay away from the likes of him. But I think for now they're going to have to kind of figure it out as they go. Now next off season, you're going to see the likes of Andrew Miller available as a free agent, Cody Allen available as a free agent, Craig Kimbrell available as a free agent. So it's really easy to get excited about this Phillies club and their pace that they're on right now. But there's still some work to go before they're really serious contenders, which could be next year. So for now, they might just kind of figure it out as they go, and hopefully by next year, when there's going to be probably a better push, and as we've said many times, they're going to get involved in the free agents. Next off season is probably when they're going to really answer that question.
And maybe they don't have to trade for one if they have one right there. I want to know what your take is on Sir Anthony Dominguez, and I know that he's got nasty stuff. Everybody seems to think that he's got a really hard slider, but I know that we had Ricky Batalico on, and we talked to, and I've heard him say before, the guy's never been setup or closer. At least let him try the setup first before you move him just into a closer role.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But really, he has so much potential. Gabe Kapler was even raving about him in spring training when he got a little bit of look with the club. It's funny. As good as he's pitching, he might end up going to AAA when this roster crunch happens and sort of get the opportunity to sort of function as a closer before he comes back. As good as he's looked, if you add Eichhoff to the roster, if you add Letter to the roster, you add Arano to the roster. Dominguez might get squeezed, but that might just be the opportunity for him to go down to AAA and just close on a regular basis. But yeah, he looks nasty. But I think I said this last week, right? Brad Lidge, that's the fastball with that nasty slider. That's a lethal combination.
Yeah, and my question would be, you got a guy like Edwin Diaz that the Mariners just kind of threw into that spot. There's other young arms at the back of bullpens here. Why not just say, this guy has got the kid out in Milwaukee with the long hair. What's his name? Hader. These guys are out there. These is the new wave of pitchers. They're blowing the ball past guys. Why not just say, we don't have another guy. Let's give this guy the opportunity.
Hey, after all, they do want to be bold, right? So why not? But we'll see. We'll see how the roster shakes out, and I think I think we saw based upon Sunday when Kapler was ready to let him come back out for the ninth until his spot in the order came up, that he was willing to give him a shot. So it'd be really interesting to see in the coming days kind of where he goes with that, or if he throws him into a high leverage situation.
Frank, it's not often that a Lakewood prospect gets into the mailbag, but someone wants to know about Ramon Rosso, the right-handed pitcher for Lakewood, and wants you to evaluate him.
Yeah, he might be baseball's best kept secret right now in the Phillies organization. Now, this Ramon Rosso, this was a guy that was originally signed by the Dodgers, got released, and the Phillies grabbed him. He was still a teenager at that point, but he's only 21 years old. Now, let me read to you some of these stats that we have with Ramon Rosso right now. So 7 starts, 0.93 earned run average, and he has struck out 52 hitters in 38 2/3 innings. In fact, his last start, he struck out 11. So I think he's starting to get some people's attention. And, he's not really seen as a prospect. You're not going to find him on any top 30 prospect list. But it's really hard to argue with what this guy has done. Now, I don't know how many of you get to go up to Lakewood every once in a while, but I think right now it's pretty clear that Rosso is beyond the competition in the South Atlantic League. A guy like that, he probably needs a promotion to Clearwater and given the opportunity to kind of rise through the system. Now, this guy is 6'4", 215 pounds. his fastball isn't dominating. And we also see that he did walk 12 in that span, which isn't terrible. But it seems like he is above the competition in the South Atlantic League, and maybe he deserves a bump up to Clearwater next time there's a spot there. And we'll really see what we have. But for the most part, I think people think the jury is still out on whether or not Rosso is a prospect. And now that he's 21, about to turn 22 next month, it's probably the time that you're going to start having that discussion. Is this guy part of the future or is he not? And in order to really have that strong evaluation, you really got to see him at an upper level. So very, very impressive for the South Atlantic League. An ERA under 1 after 7 starts is pretty incredible. But we really got to see this guy at other levels before you really decide what he is.
What about your take on the Cole Hamels stuff? We're starting to see some, articles start to come out about the Phillies and Cole Hamels and a reunion. Where do you stand on that?
The Phillies, I was just looking at this just yesterday. If you look at the Phillies' active roster, every single pitcher on the roster is a right-handed pitcher. That doesn't happen anymore in baseball, right? And in the off season, they kept talking about how the Phillies really need a left-handed starter. So if you're looking for a profile of what the Phillies could use to sort of, if they're going to try to contend, a left-handed starter like Cole Hamels would be kind of what they need. Now, I think it's important to note that Cole Hamels of 2018 is not the Cole Hamels of old, right? He's not going to be you can't expect him to be what he used to be, but if the Rangers are going to shop him, I think the Phillies need to be involved. I mean, unlike a lot of teams, the Phillies can just take on the entire salary. If you look at some of the high payroll teams that are the contenders, a lot of them can't afford a Cole Hamels salary without the Rangers paying it down. So the Phillies could just take that entire thing right off the Rangers' hands, which would benefit the Rangers, and the Phillies have some prospects that they could trade. So in terms of a trade matchup, the Phillies seem to be a good fit. Now, that's not to say other teams aren't going to want him. The one thing that I kind of was thinking that, if the Phillies still think 2019 is the year that they're more likely to contend, Cole Hamels has a contract option for next year. So, you might want to trade for him this year, even though the Phillies might not contend. Again, the pace is very good so far. But maybe kind of thinking that for next season, he could be the third starter. Because, if you have Arrieta, Nola, and Hamels, I mean, that's you're getting into one of the top rotations in the league, and we'll see who rises to the top for the remaining Phillies starters. But, if you're the Phillies, regardless of your history with Cole Hamels, that's a trade you gotta consider.
All right, we'll keep an eye on the Phillies, and of course they take on the Orioles, who are a terrible team, so they should pick up a couple of here. We'll get into that and more. Frank Klose has the mailbag. Your questions always welcomed at Frank Klose on Twitter. That's Klose with a K. And listen, for the mailbag, every Tuesday at this time, although if the Phillies continue to play better baseball, we might have to open a second mailbag with Frank here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Frank, take care, pal.
Thanks, guys.